record to put it on the web. Let me just quickly unmute everyone for a second and ask, as soon as the microphones open up, is there anyone who needs permission to record for television so I can give you strict access?
Yeah, if I could have permission, this is Connor Wilton, that'd be great.
Okay. And allow record, okay?
Thank you.
Would anyone else like permission to record? Dustin, you good? All right. I'll keep an eye on the chat and monitor the waiting room. I'm going to take myself off camera now. Mute everyone and unmute Oscar. When you see me disappear, go ahead and begin.
You mute all? Okay, good. All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Oscar Castaneda, and I am a community organizer in Lansing and with the Action of Greater Lansing. And I see that some people is from Lansing is here, so yeah, we probably saw each other before. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. This press conference is to bring attention, to bring the issue of Immigration Centers of America, known as ICA, the for-profit prison company that for a few years had been trying to open an immigration detention center in Ionia, Michigan. There was a very important development recently, and this is that 2 days ago, the County of Ionia commissioners made the formal decision of not having an opinion in the issue of the construction of the center and not to discuss it anymore. We see it as a positive development, and we are very appreciative of the commissioners on making this decision, which is just in line with what seems to be the feelings of the community at Ionia. The way the community feels in Ionia, and also what makes sense for the vast majority of the American population. So today we will present you a lineup of folks who know the subject from very different angles, members from the community, people who has been working extensively in the subject of the Immigration Centers of America and private jails, and also people who has been personally affected by the issue. With that, I'm gonna present you the speakers, and at the end of the presentation, we will open it for questions, and then we can take any questions that you might have. So I would like to start with Eric Bouwens. He's from Grand Rapids, and he's a physician. Dr. Bouwens earned his medical degree from the University of Michigan, and he is very focused in cross-cultural medicine and in taking care of the ones who are underserved. Eric, please take it away.
Good morning. As a physician, I am concerned about the construction of a new prison, especially a privately held ICE detention center. As we have recently passed the horrific milestone of 100,000 Americans killed by COVID-19, we must look at every institution and every activity in a new way in terms of how we prevent future contagion and illness. We know that overcrowding housing has contributed to forming new nidus of infection that then becomes the source of spread to the surrounding community. ICE prisons are run by private companies, are as much at risk or greater than risk than other prisons. Recent statistics released by ICE report that of the 2,300 people tested in ICE detention, 1,200 were positive for COVID-19. Recently, the House Committee on Homeland Security Oversight conducted a hearing that was on September 26, 2019, in which the lax oversight of ICE prisons was examined and questioned in detail. Representative Bernie Thompson Stated too often, ICE turns a blind eye to the conditions of its facilities. The Office of the Inspector General found a number of disturbing conditions in ICE prisons. In addition to the risks of local communities to the prison workers, we must also acknowledge the risk to the detainees and to their families. You may know that in Kent County, 40% of positive COVID-19 tests are among Hispanics, who are less than 10% of our population. Housing nonviolent detainees accused of violating these regulations will further put the Hispanic community at risk of COVID-19. These groups have been essential for maintaining our food supply, construction, and other service industries during this time. We're learning from this pandemic that there's no such thing as an isolated community. Any community that becomes infected can become a source for the rest of us. A new ICE prison, I feel, will not make us safer, but will put us all at increased risk of infection.
Thank you very much, Eric. I just want to make a quick point. Eric, as you can see, Eric is on duty right now and he's at work. There is a slight possibility that he might have to leave and not finish the conference. If you happen to have questions for him, we will make sure that the questions reach him and we will pass them back to you. So if he leaves, don't worry, we will keep the communication going. Thank you very much, Eric. The next person in our lineup is TImothy Thompson. He is a 20+ years resident of Ionia. He is a husband, he's a father, he's also a grandfather, and he has been working for more than 30 years in accounting and education. He also fought with us against ICE and the ICA center. ICA was trying to build another center in Ionia about 2 years ago. We were able to stop it and halt the process. He was in that fight, and he's also fighting now. Tim, please take it away.
Thank you, Oscar. As a longtime resident, I know this town and I know how it's perceived. Ionia is known for two things, basically, our free fare and our state prisons. The fare is a reason that people come to Ionia, but this only lasts for about 2 weeks out of the year. The prisons, on the other hand, are a reason why people don't want to come to Ionia. That's why they stay away. And these prisons are here year-round. Why would we want to add another negative view of our community with this for-profit prison? Being a senior tax analyst for a Fortune 500 publicly traded company, I also know the pressure of producing that extra 2 cents per share for the shareholders. This prison's owners will face those same type of pressures. That means cutting corners. That means lower wages, less benefits, and poorer working conditions for the guards. That means less maintenance for the facility. And that means less staffing and less education for the guards. And ultimately, that means trouble. Now, I've mentioned that we have prisons already in this town, but they are not for profit. Nor do we have for-profit fire or police departments. Why? Because these are community services provided for the benefits of the citizens, not some shareholders. Our criminal justice system should be the same. You should not have to pay a premium to have the fire department put out a house fire. And we should not have to pay a premium for having safety in our community. In a county with limited resources and infrastructure, the addition of this facility will tax our local law enforcement and our healthcare systems. It will put added pressure on our water and sewer systems also. And most likely within 10 years, there is a good chance we will have another big empty box as this prison would be closed down. That's just, we don't need that in this town. And yet we would still be paying for the increased costs for that fire, for that sewer and water. And if you don't think it will cause a stress on our healthcare system, David Michaels, former OSHA director, just pointed out that counties with the highest rate of coronavirus outbreak are those with prisons and meatpacking plants. So let me end by saying that I am pleased that the Board of Commissioners tabled the resolution to endorse this project. But I am disappointed that they did not go the extra step further and pass a resolution opposing an unneeded and unwanted for-profit prison in Ionia County. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. The next person is Monica Andrade. She's an attorney at the ACLU of Michigan who focuses her work in immigrant rights issues. Recently, she has been in the litigation team that is working to get individuals out of ICA detention centers during the COVID pandemic. Monica, please take it away.
Thanks, Oscar. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. And thanks everyone for having me and creating this platform to be able to talk about this issue. So we were able to make public comment a few weeks ago when the Board of Commissioners took up this issue. And we're also glad that they are taking no action, but we want to see a little bit more. The ACLU of Michigan knows that this expansion that is envisioned by ICE, it cannot be accomplished without undermining the due process and the civil right protections for those who will be detained. One of the main points that we made in the letter is that ICE's detention system and practices already suffer from broken practices, which will be ingrained in the expansion of the facility. And it's only going to further jeopardize the lives and civil rights of those detained, especially given that Immigration Centers of America, who would be running the facility, as others have mentioned, already has a history of inhumane practices and various complaints. ICE is constitutionally and ethically obligated to provide for the health and safety of those whom it detains. And the Constitution requires immigration to be civil and non-punitive in nature. But what is really happening is that the immigration detention system is overwhelmingly outsourced for profit prison companies and for local jails. The system is already notorious for abusive and inhumane conditions, and it is widely criticized for its lack of transparency and accountability. Specific to the proposed expansion at Ionia, Immigration Centers of America has its own history of abuse. The Department of Homeland Security's Office for Civil Rights and Civil Liberties opened an investigation into the center in the Farmville location after it received various complaints about the facility. To make matters worse, the proposal comes at a time of unprecedented health risk during the COVID-19 pandemic. At the ACLU of Michigan, as Oscar said, we continue to fight for the release of those detained by ICE during this pandemic. And as Dr. Bouwens mentioned, jails and detention centers have been found to be largely incapable of implementing social distancing, of providing sufficient hygiene products and personal protective equipment, or having proper medical equipment and personnel to effectively respond to an outbreak. It is of little utility to build even larger places prone to become the next viral epicenters, especially when there are perfectly sufficient alternative detention that are available. Another point that we made in the letter is that not a single organization, at least to our knowledge, that provides services to the immigrant community received an inquiry or request for consultation regarding our capacity to provide pro bono legal services to this potentially new facility. And so what this means is that it's not even a serious consideration in ICE's proposal. It is widely recognized by legal practitioners that immigration law is complex, and such cases often raise issues of life and death. And even though the INA, the Immigration and Nationality Act, does provide a right to counsel, that right is only realized for those who can afford to pay a lawyer or who can secure a pro bono attorney. So essentially the right means nothing to most immigrants in detention. And the importance of legal representation during removal proceedings cannot be overstated. The evidence is clear on this. When immigrants are represented, they are twice as likely to obtain immigration relief. To be clear, expansion will without a doubt mean more detained immigrants facing removal without a lawyer. And finally, there is simply no public safety or need or justification for the proposed expansion. And in fact, it is quite the opposite, as the public would be far better served by decreasing the numbers of those detained and utilizing community-based alternatives to detention for those that are not released on their own recognizance. More immigration beds means more families are separated and communities are torn apart. This expansion will largely correspond with ramped up interior enforcement operations. and these operations will in no way reflect the public safety mission that ICE touts. Instead, the new detention beds will be filled with fathers of the more than 4 million US citizen children of undocumented parents, causing at minimum economic instability and immense psychological harm for generations to come. There are plenty of alternatives to detention, including parole, affordable bond, community-based support programs, and check-ins, and so forth. On any given day, ICE jails more than 3 times the number of immigrants jailed only 20 years ago. Moves to expand this already bloated system will only cause harm in our communities. We urge Ionia and those involved with this expansion to favor practical and humane solutions over profit-driven and unnecessary methods that are only known to create immense misery and irreparable harm to individuals, to our families, and to our communities at large. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Monica. The next person that's gonna speak today is, I think it's something really important. It's a person who is affected personally by the detention centers. Her name is Patricia Nino, and she is not in video, but she's in the telephone. And I think, can you hear me, Patricia?
Yes.
Okay, so Patricia, please take it away.
My name is Patricia, and I live in Detroit, Michigan. I just wanted to talk about my husband who was detained in 2016. He was deported that same year in July of 2016, and he was never given any chance to fight his case at all because of his entry. I tried to move on with my life, and I met somebody else, and he's detained by ICE. And because of the virus, he's there, and it's just like every day it's like so scary because he's, they don't give them any cleaning supplies, they don't give them any face masks, they don't give them anything. They let all their kitchen staff go because of the virus, and they are, they're grown men, and they're eating 2 pieces of bread with the bologna on it, and they're not being really taken care of there. They're just not, they're being detained in St. Clair because they're getting paid to keep them, and it's just, it's not safe for them.
Thank you very much, Patricia. Next, I want to pass it to Electra Bolotas. Electra is a school teacher in the state of Virginia, but she is also very active in La ColectiVA. It's an inclusive grassroots organization that is led by Latinx people in Virginia. Through her involvement in La ColectiVA, Electra has been working in education campaigns in the harm that ICA, Immigration Centers of America, is causing in the community. Electra, please take it away.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, and thank you for listening. As mentioned, I'm from La ColectiVA, and we value inclusive communities, and we know that our communities thrive when they have access to public health resources, education, and housing. By design, detention is a direct threat to health of our communities. Detention as an institution separates people from their chosen communities through incarceration and deportation. It is a place where people are caged against their will based on a racialized system that specifically targets Black and brown people of color. By separating communities, people are more easily exploited, allowing companies to keep wages low and keep people from organizing for better conditions. Once inside detention, people experience both psychological and physical abuse. As a private prison company, Immigration Centers of America, or ICA, sells itself as a more humane alternative to public prisons and detention centers. It claims to offer better facilities to detain people, However, we know that there is no humane way to imprison anyone. As a for-profit corporation, ICA's ultimate goal is to make money for its shareholders by imprisoning more and more migrants. A recent study of invoices from ICA to government officials by the National Immigration Justice Center provides evidence of the for-profit driven incentivization of the mass incarceration of migrants. ICA Farmville is currently the largest for-profit private detention center in the Mid-Atlantic region. Between 2015 and 2018, it doubled the amount of beds from 700 to 1,300 in Farmville, receiving money from the federal government for each person that occupies a bed. ICA is constantly searching for vulnerable, often rural communities that have been underdeveloped with a promise of jobs. And it is strategically choosing to expand into Ionia based on the unzoned land available. According to the National Immigration Justice Center, ICA has an Intergovernmental Service Agreement, or IGSA, as the exclusive operator of the Farmville jail. The town of Farmville gets a small part of ICA's profit for operating the detention center. In April 2019, ICA Farmville billed ICE $2,069,258 for 1 month of operations. In the same month, the town of Farmville took a cut of $20,489. Ultimately, a few stakeholders are the ones who profit off the system of harm. Although ICA sells itself as a company that runs on care and efficiency, a well-documented history of abuses towards both people detained and staff at ICA proves otherwise. In 2015, there were incidents of larvae in the food given to people detained at ICA Farmville. In the same year, staff pepper sprayed a person detained while he was fully restrained in a chair. Later that year, someone was sprayed and kept in a 4-point restraint bed for 2 whole days. Also in 2015, a person detained at ICA Farmville was pepper sprayed after mopping the floor with his socks. Someone detained was also placed in a restraint bed for 4 days. In 2015, a group of people inside ICA Farmville were pepper sprayed by a guard, and video shows that they were calm the whole time. Although there was a clear documentation of these incidents and investigations found ICA guilty, ICA has been able to circumvent paying large penalties, and little to no action has been taken to bring justice to their victims. In addition, there have been 2 deaths at the facility. Death as a result of physical abuse should not be normalized and has no place in our community. In June 2019, people inside ICA Farmville organized a meal strike after a mumps outbreak. People who organized from the inside are currently suing ICA for retaliating against them with pepper spray and solitary confinement. More recently, in March 2020, people inside ICA Farmville organized a hunger strike demanding their freedom amid COVID-19 outbreaks. People detained at ICA Farmville continuously demand their freedom. In every place ICA has tried to expand, people have come together to organize around defunding hate and shut down the expansion of this harmful company. In Maryland, Iowa, and now Michigan, ICA's reputation as a problematic and harmful company is infamous. I urge our communities to demand that our elected official invest in the health and education of our communities, especially in this time of unprecedented and unnecessary turmoil, and not in harmful, wasteful, and a dangerous system of incarceration. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you very much, Electra. So they are the five people that we have lined up for today to give us their statements, their vision, their experiences with ICA and the Ionia situation. Now I would like to open it for questions for the ones who are attending the conference. Nobody has any questions?
I'm unmuting the microphones. At least I'm trying to. if you have any questions, perhaps you can unmute yourself at your end if we can't hear you now.
And if you cannot, if you don't manage to unmute, you could type it in the chat, and then Eric might fix your situation. Okay, I see. Seems like there's no questions today. So if there are no questions, I think that we came to the end of our press conference. And I personally, on behalf of Action with Great Lansing, No Detention Centers in Michigan, and Michigan United, I really want to thank the folks who took the time to speak in our press conference today, and also to the media who came to the conference. Oh, Dustin, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, sorry, I was muted before.
Okay.
I just had a question on what's the strategy for stopping it? If the county, I know that there was action at the county level, but the county claims they don't actually have to approve this. They just were talking about a resolution. So is there any legal recourse to potentially stop this, given that it's a private landowner, it's unzoned land?
Who would like to take that question?
Yeah, I can answer a little bit of it. So I think we're looking at what options we have, and obviously we're gonna take the lead of the people that are on the ground, like no detention centers. I think our role is to support the people that have been doing this work for this entire time. So it really just depends. We have someone doing some research and figuring out what we can do. I think the strategy is give them hell, and then to see that it's going to be too difficult to do it here and to leave. So there are a few strategies, and I don't know if Oscar wants to talk about that. I'll let him talk about those things, but I think right now it's really just advocacy and shining a light on, do we really want this in our community? Is this what we want? And look at what's happening in Farmville.
Yeah, and I could speak to it, and also I know that J.R. Martin is in the call. J.R., if you would like to say anything, he is a very, very active member of No Detention Centers in Michigan. If you want to say anything, J.R., just unmute yourself. Go ahead. Yeah, go, Electra.
So from my perspective, I think people have a lot of power. The people who own ICA as a company, the shareholders, the people profiting, they are not the ones who are going to have to live in Ionia and deal with the consequences. So I think people living there on the ground have a lot of power about how they want the direction of their community to go in. And at the same time, these agreements with ICE are all local, they're all voluntary. The IGSA that ICA has to operate in Farmville gives them exclusive rights to operate the jail. So there are definitely some very specific policies from 287G that criminalizes people and allows the police to work with ICE, to the IGSA agreement, which is a completely voluntary agreement. And in the end, the federal government receives money from people who are living on the ground in these communities. So in the end, they are responsible to the people that they are here to serve. So I think it would be a good mix of local people, definitely people who have loved ones incarcerated, and elected officials who have a responsibility to their communities.
J.R., go.
Hi, this is J.R. Martin with No Detention Centers in Michigan, and I just wanted to really briefly add on to what a couple of folks have just said. So as Monica mentioned, I think there are multiple ways that people will continue to organize against this proposed facility, and one area that I know we're looking into is just that the current owners of the land, you know, their names have been released in the media, and so we are looking into contacting them and just making sure they're aware of how destructive this facility would be for the community, and what that decision could mean for so many lives in Ionia and beyond. And I would also just say that because we're talking about the construction of a new building and a new facility, not just the reopening of a previously existing facility, that there are just so many factors that are up in the air, thinking about what that could look like over the next year, right? And I think we just want to make it really clear that people in Ionia, people in Michigan are not going to let this place open and run without a fight. We're going to do whatever we can to prevent this detention center from opening and causing so much harm in people's lives.
And I'm gonna step up from my MC position for a minute and just intercede a little bit, following up on what JR said. As Monica mentioned before, education is a huge piece. It's big. You know, it's really impressive how in Michigan you talk to people and you tell them what's going on and they just don't know. People doesn't know, and you say, "Do you know that they're building a jail in your town?" And they're like, "What are you talking about?" And when you go to the ICA website and you look at the pictures that they have in there, it really looks like a summer camp. It looks such a beautiful place with libraries and computers and basketball courts. And then you listen to the information that Electra provided, and you realize that this is just a montage, and it's not what it is. You also listen to the media that the immigrants that are in the process of regularizing their situation just disappear and they never come back. That is also not true, and Monica can testify to it. You know, they are using electronic systems now to monitor people. They have telephone apps. They have a real, almost big brother system of controlling people. There's no need to have them incarcerated. And on top of everything, it's extremely expensive. So for us, a very important piece is educating the community and informing the community of what's going on or what is the reality for those things. And because of that is that we are having this press conference today, because we just want to go out and let everybody aware of what is happening. Okay, I'm back to MC now. So anybody else wants to say anything else? Something more about the subject? Tim?
Well, we'll do whatever we can. There's questions about, it's a unzoned community, but there's still going to be questions about water and sewer and electricity, access, whether the property would perk if they needed to put in their own septic system. And we are just going to make sure that the word gets out to the community that this is not something we need or want in our community.
And maybe if they are willing to invest in so many pieces of the infrastructure for the facility, you can get a sense of how profitable it is to incarcerate people. And I'm not against people becoming rich. I wish everybody was rich in this country, but not to the cost of human lives and people being in jail and taking advantage of the ones who are in a struggle. And I think it's enough for it. Anybody else? Anybody wants to follow up? If anybody has another question?
Just really briefly adding to what Oscar mentioned a minute ago about the importance of education and just spreading the word about what actually happens in facilities like this. No Detention Centers in Michigan has also been working over the last few months to support people at the North Lake Correctional Facility in Baldwin, which is a different facility in some respects, but it's also operated by a private for-profit company. So North Lake is a prison run by the GEO Group, which is different from ICA, but they are both private companies that profit from incarceration. And we've seen many of the same differences that Oscar talked about between what the GEO Group wants people to believe this place is like and what they will tell you is happening there, and what we've heard from people inside the prison, where there have been, to our knowledge, 4 separate hunger strikes over the last 2 months in response to appalling conditions and a complete failure to deal with the COVID-19 crisis. And we know that the numbers of people infected with COVID-19 at that prison, those numbers are not counted in the tally for Lake County, which I think for a long time, because there was so much secrecy and because the GEO Group and the Bureau of Prisons were so effective at hiding this information, there was a real false sense of security among people in Lake County about the COVID-19 crisis and what was happening in that area. And people were not aware that more than 75 incarcerated people, and at this point more than 20 staff members have tested positive for COVID-19. And we know that because they're testing only people with a limited number of symptoms, the actual number of cases at North Lake is much higher. So I think that just speaks to, as Oscar said, the need to continue to spread information and raise awareness about what the conditions in these places are actually like.
Thank you, Jair. Okay, seems like we're a little bit over the time that we had budgeted for this press conference. And again, for the media who came to stay with us in this press conference, thank you very much for giving us your time, and thank you very much for helping us to spread the word of how we see this for-profit organizations that are taking advantage of the ones who are in need. Again, as I said in the beginning, this was put together by different organizations in the area, and Michigan United, Actual Grand Lansing, no detention centers in Michigan, and we also have the help of folks from Virginia and ACLU in Michigan. And please feel free to contact us for any follow-up questions or any follow-up ideas. Thank you very much. And with this, I'm gonna pass it back to Erik Shelley, who is the person who is behind in the background running the whole press conference. Erik, it's you.
Okay. Well, once again, thank you all for coming out. I hope that you get use of the recording that you made available. If you weren't able to record it, I will be sending a link shortly as soon as it's available. And you are hereby authorized to use it for broadcast and any other digital media platforms that you have. Thank you.